So welcome everybody to New Earth Podcast. We're so lucky to have Zoe Davenport with us today. I connected with Zoe a few months ago. She just suddenly started coming into my field. I'd never heard of Zoe, and I just kept seeing her in my Facebook, various places. And I connected with Zoe and invited her to come on the podcast. And then we both realized that we were actually coming to an event, the same event in about a week's time in Portugal. So we actually got to meet and connect, which was absolutely wonderful. So welcome, Zoe, to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was beautifully, divinely orchestrated for us to link up. So very special, and what a gift.
It was beautiful, and a lovely soul gathering event that we were at in Portugal as well.
Yeah.
So Zoe's a speaker, an oracle, and a mentor, spiritual mentor. So I know that you want to do a little bit of an intention setting introduction. So I'm going to leave it with you to see how you want to set up, and then we'll just see what flows from there, Zoe.
Yeah, beautiful. So I always like to do this before, kind of diving into conversation, just to set the intention and the energetic space. So those of you that are listening, I just invite you to become fully present into this conversation. And if you'd like, you can even just close your eyes for a moment and take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Good. And we just invite in the highest available frequencies of light into this space, into this field, this conversation of all of us listening and speaking and participating in this transmission of light. And we lovingly ask for all energies that are not serving the highest good to go home and evolve now. Show me. We set the intention to open our hearts to the divine, grounding into the crystalline core of Gaia, and opening up to our divine potential, highest available timeline, and for all of the wealth and wisdom and knowledge to flow through us. Good. Taking a deep breath in and out through the mouth. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. That was beautiful. It's amazing how it shifts the tone. I did that kind of intention setting prior to the podcast, but it's actually really beautiful to do it as part of it as well, so that we all align and tune in. So how important do you feel that intention setting and, all coming into the same page, bringing in the light as a part of that is for you and your spiritual process?
Well, I'm finding more and more these times are calling for a greater spiritual practice. And these times are also calling for a greater remembrancing throughout the day to check in, to connect, to be self-aware, to be self-observant, and to take responsibility for our energetic hygiene and our connection and our intention. Because it's the difference of having a day where life is just floating along as it normally does, and actually really stepping into divine mastery. And that divine mastery is really paying attention to the subtle signs and feelings and thoughts that are arising for us at any given day, because we are so programmed and conditioned to be in this separated consciousness, in this overwhelming, exhausting time of too much to do and busy schedules and as we take the time to create stillness, to pause, and it doesn't have to be a whole day, it can be 10 breaths, it can be stopping for a moment and becoming fully present. And because the presence is where the gifts are, the presence is where we really start to understand our abilities as co-creators on this planet. It helps us to ground and anchor in our manifestations, because if we are running around with too much to do, feeling overwhelmed, feeling bombarded, feeling disconnected from our truth, from our divinity, yet under that same actions of doing, we are trying to create, we're trying to manifest, we're trying to control how that shows up. We are not allowing the flow of divine law to come into fruition for us. We're not allowing ourselves to receive, because our vibration is kind of flowing in one particular direction and one particular pattern of sequences, and our desire over here is floating in a different vibration, a different set of, it requires us to be in a different consciousness, to be in receptivity of what it is that we're creating. And so we live in a reality that is duality. We live in a reality that is in separation. And as we have our spiritual awakening, we are coming back into wholeness. We are coming back into that true connection to the divine. And then the divine mastery piece is to hold the frequency of neutrality. And neutrality comes from presence. And presence allows us to hold what it is we truly desire. And we are actually creating as co-creators, because the co-creation piece is being created consciously through our thought, through our intention, but we're fully present to our intention. And so then we are dissolving and eliminating those cross beliefs that we have, right? And so we have our belief system over here that believes that we can do something, and we have our belief system over here that believes we can't do something. And most of the time we're in the opposites of those. And so we're actually like almost like repelling what it is that we want to create, what it is that we want to hold true in our hearts and bring into fruition. And so as we are in this collapsing system of duality, as this third dimensional awareness of consciousness is coming to its completion cycle, and that we are co-creatively ascending, descending to a different version of time and space, we can either be in the neutrality of those aspects of self, those parts of self that had chosen to participate in duality and that contraction, or we can choose to participate in the acceleration and in the expansion, which is that fifth dimensional consciousness. So there's no separation. And the more that we practice this, emphasis on practice on a daily basis, it will allow us to become masterful over our own minds, over our own thoughts. And it will allow us to flow not easily per se, but a little bit more gently into the experiences, because we will have a divine knowing of when to take that inspired action, because we will feel it. And it will eliminate that not knowing, or that turmoil, or those thoughts of just feeling like it's too much, or there's too much of a pressure. Like a lot of us have been feeling like we're in pressure cookers in our spiritual awakening.
It's really incredible. And this idea of overcoming the programming of separation is really important work, because we've been so programmed with that, that we're separate from ourselves, others, the divine nature.
Mm-hmm.
So you spoke about this kind of repelling that can happen, and I found that really interesting, because often when we think of duality, we're looking at things outside of ourselves, but what you're suggesting is that duality can kind of almost happen, that polarization can almost happen when inside ourselves as well. So there's almost a part of us that's wanting to do this while the other's wanting to go in the opposite direction. So my understanding is that a lot of that can relate to kind of subconscious programming. Do you have anything with your work that can help to clear that subconscious programming? And is that how you're seeing it when you're talking about that repelling, or was it something slightly different?
Yeah, so it's what I've been hearing loud and clear this last month in particular, and it's probably come up with all of my clients and all of the interviews and everything I've been sharing, is internal alignment for external manifestation. And so that in itself kind of explains like, oh yeah, we need to internally harmonize and align our inner beingness, who we are being as a soul, to harmonize that external manifestation, so that we are in expansion, not contraction. We are in connection, not separation. So we are learning the polar opposite, right? And the belief systems, the programs, and I invite anyone listening to this to remove the wording block from your vocabulary, because this is also something that, oh, I must have blocks, or I must have something in a past life. But even these, the wordings, and then how we're kind of using this is continuing to affirm that program. And so let me give you an example of, I don't know, let's say a pro skier, and he's at the top of the ski run. And imagine he's telling himself over and, or she, imagine they are telling themselves over and over again, I'm not going to make this jump. You know, imagine he's going down a big ramp and flying in the air. I'm not going to make this. I'm going to fall over halfway down and break my leg. This is rubbish. I shouldn't be doing this, yada, yada, yada. And then what do you think is going to happen? He's not going to be present. He's going to be thinking about all the reasons why he should not be taking that massive step. Or this person could visualize, I see myself winning. I see myself creating the path of least resistance. I see myself flying in the air and landing, right? And so it's brain training. It's belief repatterning, so that you want to change the way that you speak about yourself and the way that you speak about what it is that you desire from an empowered space. And at first, you will not believe yourself, because you will think that you're lying, that it hasn't been created yet. Now, that pro athlete that's at the top of that massive ski run did not start off at the massive ski run. They probably started off at the tiny itty bitty little baby jump, right? And so it's the incremental steps forward. And it's the same with reprogramming our beliefs. It's the practice every day. And eventually those new thought processes will start firing up, and the old thought processes will start to become redundant. And so these motor neurons no longer fire up because the thought isn't there, right? And so that's when there's new neuroplasticity being grown, and we actually start to believe it. We actually start to feel it in every cell of our being.
I love this, and it's very empowering, because it's putting the onus on ourselves to rewire ourselves rather than looking to something external. And this idea of doing it incrementally, little baby steps, to reach a bigger goal, that I can speak for that personally. It really helps that rewiring, starting with something that's a little bit, it's like it's extending our comfort zone, isn't it? So that our ability to hold space extends,
Yeah.
and whatever that is for us, whatever our divine purpose is, it's extending that ability to hold that resonance, which is incredibly powerful work.
Yeah, I agree. And what's also coming through that my guides want to share as well is when we're doing this type of work, you want to have your goal, your dream, your desire big enough that it is so ridiculously different from what and who you are in this present moment. Like, you want to have something that is going to give you inspiration, that is going to light you up inside. You want to have that dream. Almost, it's better to create something in your mind that is so unbelievable to the human of who you are in this moment that it couldn't possibly happen for you. So by that statement, you will not be connected to it. You won't be attached to it. And that dream is what keeps us alive. It's what allows us to be energy in motion, which is emotion. We want to have an emotional connection to a desire or a dream or a goal in our life, because that's what lights us up. That's what makes us feel good. Now, the steps to get there, however, are the baby steps, are the incremental shifts and changes moving forwards. But when you're in that expanded state of consciousness, when you're in those realms between waking and sleeping, or sleeping and waking, is the time to focus on that big dream, that big desire for yourself. And it's only yours, and no one can take your dream away from you. And it doesn't even matter if that dream doesn't come into fruition, because when we are aligning to divine service and the highest available timeline, what we think we could imagine for ourselves, as opposed to what is actually possible, is even bigger than what we could have created from our minds and our egos. But we want to have that dream and that passion, and that's what keeps us inspired. And then in the day-to-day, it's the fetch wood, carry water. It's wax on, wax off. It's Karate Kid, which is it's such a silly movie, but he really taught that student about control, of consistency, of discipline, of moving towards something. And I remember in the film, he's like, this is stupid. Like, why am I even doing this? Like, I've just been doing like waxing cars all day long. I came here to learn karate. And, the master's like, okay, like, let me show you a karate move. And it's the exact move of what he was learning. So it's that fetch wood, carry water. Trouble is, most of humanity is quite lazy. Most of humanity just expects something to magically manifest and fall out of the sky. But you want it more. You want to have that passion and that fire. And if you don't have that, your dream isn't big enough. Your passion and your desire is not big enough. And so what we're doing as co-creators, those of us that are in this awakening journey, I mean, we have a huge dream. Our dream is peace on earth. Our dream is cities that are not polluted. Our dream is fresh running water and food for all beings everywhere. Our dream is the eradication of sickness and disease, because we're no longer being poisoned by all the toxic chemicals in this world. I mean, these are pretty big dreams and goals. And so fetch wood, carry water. Those of us that are inspired to keep that dream alive, we start to clear through the density of separation from that dream, from that desire, from that co-creation. And then something really beautiful happens, because desire is the way soul incarnates itself into physical fruition through us as divine conduits of love. And desire flows through us in the form of light encoded information, multidimensional information. That multidimensional information, what flows through us, because it's about how much light we can process per second. So that's the raising of our frequency, our physical bodies, our nervous systems can process more light. We process more light, we process more information. We process more information, we create more solutions to the planet. And you see this, thank you, with nature. If there is a disease or there is something over here, like, for example, stinging nettles, you get stung by a stinging nettle. Next to the stinging nettle, there's a dock leaf. So nature has created a solution to the problem. And we, as connected beings to nature, as we start to harmonize that truth within ourselves and our cells, atomically and subatomically, we are in harmony to create the solutions for this planet. So this is even bigger than, what are my blocks? What are my limitations? What are my beliefs? I'm like expanding us beyond that. And, it's interesting, when I was in Portugal and we had been to these expansive events and we're all talking about heaven on earth and new earth and woo, it's amazing. And I sat around to lunch one day. We were talking to this woman about a particular thing that she'd struggled learning for 7 years, and she'd just given up. She's like, I have XYZ, da 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 da. I can't learn, da da da. She's very strong in her story. I'm like, I'm just listening to her patiently. Somebody else gives this. Oh yeah, you're right. I can't learn this as well. Da da da. So everyone is, and we habitually do this. We want to be part of a group, and so we find similar versions of ourselves to be relatable to that person. Then the person next to her said, yes, we have to accept our limitations. The whole group said, Oh, yeah, you're right. And I just slammed my hand on the table and I said, BS. I said, what are you all learning and what are you all teaching? Practice what you preach. I said, we have just spent 2 days expanding our frequency to unlimited states of consciousness, and you are supporting each other to stay in your limitation and lack. I said, I am calling BS on this, and here's why. And I went into exactly what I'm sharing with you now. And what happened was something magical happened. Everyone elevated their consciousness, started smiling and laughing and giggling and playing and giving all of these examples of how they could overcome their limitations and their blocks. Thank you very much. And I said to them, I'm not here to be liked in this world. I'm here to disrupt patterns, because we want to disrupt and break apart the patterns, the programs, the expectations, the attachments, and the control that have held us in this indoctrinated density of 3D reality. And that is what will break us free. So thank you for listening, because there's just
Yeah.
my guides are like, okay, we need to bring this transmission through.
This is so incredibly powerful. I almost want to give you a round of applause, because it was just real, like, channeled power talk, and I can just really relate to it. Firstly, like, going right back to this idea of really utilizing that time between sleeping and waking, and how important that is, and also the importance of attaching an emotion to our big dream. That really visualizing that joy of how we feel when we, like, when we're achieving it right now. We're really feeling that. And this idea of the big dream, and if you're not sort of motivated with your spiritual practice, then the dream's not big enough. I thought that was incredible. And also what came up for me when you were saying that was this idea of, we get to define what our spiritual practice is. It doesn't necessarily have to be, what the standard sort of spiritual practice is. This idea of wax on, wax off. We can create it to be a joyful experience, by not bigging it up and just making it something that we do each day as part of our staying grounded. So it just really spoke to me, and I'm sure that everyone's feeling their consciousness really elevated by what you said. I certainly am. This powerhouse of, no, we are limitless when we connect into the 0 point field and our true potential. So let's have more of that. So anything else coming through for you, Zoe?
Yeah, I love what you touched on with finding your own spiritual practice. And what I'd love to add to that is the spiritual practice is who you are being every single moment of the day. Your spiritual practice doesn't stop just because you you finished a meditation, or that you've come home from, a weekend event of activating your soul's consciousness. It's who you're being as a person. It's who you're being in service. It's how you are viewing the world. It's how you're connecting to the world. It's how you're connecting with others. It's how you're connecting to your experience. It's how you're being present to this moment. And part of that is to be disrupting patterns in your day-to-day runnings of life. And don't be afraid to connect with others through your heart, and paying attention to when you feel these intuitive hits to spark up a conversation with a stranger, or walk down a different street as opposed to the one that you always go down, because we want to break free from the familiarity of reality, because this is what continues to break us open. And so I'll give you an example of the last 2 days. I've just spent a few days to myself, which is much needed. And actually, I've realized that my spiritual practice quite often needs me to have time where physically nobody is in a space, that I'm just in that space to myself. And the profound shifts that I experience from that is amazing, because it helps to support my clients. So that's just part of what my nervous system needs. So I was in the sauna around at this spa around the corner from me, and this woman comes in, and I felt in her field, she doesn't want to talk. She just wants to lie there. She probably wants to do a meditation. But the little girl in me was like, no, I really need to talk to this woman. I'm like, well, why? Like, just leave her alone. I was like, I'm really guided to spark a conversation. I was like, okay, we'll trust that. So I was having this conversation with her. She was sharing with me all about her job and her career and how long she's lived here. And, you know, we were kind of talking for some time. And then she asked me what I did. And then she was sharing about, oh, yeah, I know some breathwork facilitators. I followed a few. And I was like, oh, maybe she didn't quite understand what I do. And that's okay. Like, you know, she's a stranger in a spa. It doesn't matter. She said, well, maybe I've heard of you. What's your name? And I shared my name. And she said, oh, yeah, I've heard of you. And I said, no, you probably haven't. And she's actually on my email list. She's actually, and I mean, this is like a random place in London. And it was really, really affirming to me because I was asking spirit in that morning questions about my path and my purpose. And it's almost like they were like, you're on the right track. You're in alignment.
Exactly. And the same happened with us, you know, because I was really guided by spirit to reach out to you. And then, you know, before we knew it, we were going to the New Earth conference together, and I managed to get you a ticket to the Diana Cooper event. So there was all these kind of flow and synchronicities that happened. And that's the magic and the miracles, isn't it, when we stay in the alignment. I love what you're saying about the pattern interrupt, because I see our role as light workers at this time as pattern interrupters, you know, because there's been so much conditioning, you know, and it's really checking, isn't it? Because, you know, I operate out of conditioning, you know, because sometimes it's really hard to see, and it's just like constantly like re-looking, you know, like what you said about the word blocks. It's like, you know, it's like reaffirming our relationship with things, you know, because it becomes part of who we are, because the conditioning has run so deep, you know. But it's so powerful when we start to blow it apart and realize that, you know, when that's the places that the light enter us, you know, when we make these spaces.
Yes. And I mean, you, in the wording that you just shared there as well, it's who we are, right? And there's this acceptance of who we are, because it's threatening to the identity, it's threatening to the ego as we start to, you know, detach and break apart the identity of self, of who we've known ourselves to be. Because who are we without our identity? Who are we? You know, before we are even able to talk and speak, we're told what our name is. We're told which country we belong to. We're told what race we are. In most cases, we're told what religion we are.
That's it.
Already.
Thank you for clarifying that, you know, that sense of, you know, where it's the identification with who we think we are and awakening to who we really are, you know. So thank you for clarifying that. That's what I meant, but you put the words to it. So thank you.
And oh, this is interesting. Actually, this is coming through. If any of you have not done this, I highly would love to, well, I can't recommend anything, but I would love to share this as an amazing practice, is to do a past life regression on yourself. Not past life, sorry, past, I can't even speak English now.
Some light language coming through.
I know. I'm like, okay, I've like hit the next level now. The English is like, it's like merged and melted. To do a regression on yourself to your birth and rewrite the story of your birth. And one thing with that is rewriting the story of your birth to clear and shift and dismantle, dissolve any and all trauma that was experienced at birth, and also to visualize your placenta still being attached until all of the blood and oxygen and nutrients from the mother has finished flowing to you. And what that will do is will start to take back your personal power from the moment that you were physically incarnated into this world and into this planet. Because a lot of people are so disconnected because they are looking for love that they didn't receive, but they had that in the womb. They had that divine connection to the mother, and they had that divine connection to their higher state of consciousness. And then when they're born, that placenta is cut too soon. And for reasons, because it's big money to, I mean, it's used in cosmetics and facial surgeries, I mean, it's awful. The business of being born, I mean, that's a whole nother topic, but energetically rewire that in your nervous system, that you had an amazing birth, that it's clearing out. You know, there was years ago, I was walking, I think I was in an department store in Canada. And this woman was talking to us. I was with a friend and we were trying on clothes. And my friend was kind of sharing to the store clerk. I don't even know why she was sharing about me. And the store clerk kind of like, she perked her ears up, and I could kind of tell her she was asking me, like, you know, telepathically about her. And without her saying anything, I said to her, "You've been getting migraines your whole life because your mum pressured you into being born too quick." And her face just dropped. And she's like, "How on earth did you know that?" I was like, "You need to rewrite your birth story."
Is this something you do, Zoe? Do you work?
Well, I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it's something that I should. I mean, if it comes up with clients, then I do. But I empower people to do this for themselves. Like, you know, it's very easy to close your eyes and just visualize back to your birth, you know, but it's just something I could do.
And can I just add, anyone that wants some support with this, I interviewed a wonderful lady called Sharon King, and you can find it under the playlist in my YouTube channel, the podcast as well. And she actually does this work. She does regression to your birth. I've done it for my own birth. I've done it for my kids' birth. It's just it's such a beautiful and powerful, and it also heals relationships with your mother, your family.
Amazing.
You know, because of what's happening in the womb. You know, it may actually be that there was, you know, that a lot of you inherited a lot of stuff there as well. So it's incredibly powerful work. So really, really great that you brought this up, Zoe.
Yeah, I was feeling guided. It was an important component, because sometimes we can be, you know, really doing all the work, like showing up, doing all the practices, and not, you know, there's something that's not quite shifting. And so I think that's why my guides are like, okay, add this as an addition to the work that we're already doing.
I just have one more question for you before we finish up today.
Sure.
So, you know, we've talked about this, our being co-creators, and how important it is, our intention, our emotion that we set attached to our big dream, etc. For people that are doing this and they're still feeling a lot of turbulence, still having difficulty, because, you know, obviously there's a lot going on in the world at the moment, perhaps feeling disheartened or overwhelmed, what would you say to those people?
Get a really strong spiritual practice under your belt and give yourself some time with it. Like, when we're starting to feel like that, it's because we've become disconnected to our own potential. Right. And so when we're feeling like that, it's because our focus has gone too much on what is not working, what is falling apart. Right. Where is our energy and where is our focus? And it's not, I need to be very careful in the wording of this. It's not that we are not meant to be aware of the world and the collapsing systems and everything that's going on. I have a tremendous amount of love in my heart and compassion for everything in this world that people are facing. And I also support in many ways when I can, donating to charity and supporting people on the streets, and those are my conscious choosings of participation. But it's from love and compassion and neutrality. It's not playing into the density of it. Right. And so there are many souls on this planet that are unable to be resonant to the frequencies that are hitting the planet. And so we are seeing a lot of exits, a lot of sharp and sudden exits. And this, unfortunately, is part of that soul's evolution. And so if we remember ourselves as infinite, we remember that all this is a simulation. Right. And this is part of that awakening journey, is once we awaken to the matrix simulation, we break ourselves free from the program. You have a Neo moment. Like, what do you want to create? Do you want to create more hate and fear and divide? Or do you want to create love, peace, and unity? Do you want to create solutions? Do you want to create incredible businesses? Do you want to create conscious children? Do you want to create more love?
Or all the above?
Or all of the above. Yes.
Why not?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. I know we were speaking before we came on, we were talking about how there's a lot of exits and a lot of new beginnings. So before we round up, you might want to expand upon that. But what I'd just really like to leave with is I realized that I didn't really introduce you properly in the work that you do. And obviously, you know, through your, because we went into the prayer, you know, so through your, you know, beautiful explanations, I'm sure people have got a big understanding, but would you like to, do you introduce at the end, or is it, can we find a new word for that?
Yeah.
And also let people know how they can find you, and anything that they can connect in with you. I'll put any links in the description of the video.
Sure. Yeah. The best way to connect with me is going to the website, which is zoedavenport.com. And there you can sign up to the weekly newsletter, and it also gives you access to a 2-hour masterclass using the diamond light frequencies to clear subconscious programming. And this is something that I ran live and recorded, and it's since been edited with specific binaural frequencies. And I've had such an amazing kind of feedback of positivity from people that have been doing this class. And so it's a gift for the world to enjoy it. I mean, give yourself 2 hours. We go into quite a lot of depth with it, but it will give you some good nuggets on how to kind of be working and accessing some of these deeper subconscious programmings, and actually working with these higher frequencies of light and bringing it through your nervous system through breath work and intention. So if you visit the website, you have access to that, and or reach out on Instagram, which is I am Zoe Davenport. You can find me on Facebook, and introductions. I mean, yeah, people get a sense of who I am, I guess. I never really like to say I'm a you know, we're always shifting and changing. So
Yeah.
I think you did introduce me as a mentor and speaker, and yeah, it feels good.
Oh, well, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on today. I certainly really love this podcast, and it's been wonderful chatting with you. Hope everyone at home has enjoyed it also, and please do hit the subscribe so you can enjoy more New Earth podcasts. Many blessings. Thank you so
my
much,
blessings.
Zoe.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.